Good afternoon. We're glad you're here. We're glad you came here, and we're also glad that you've stuck around to what I think is probably one of the most important sessions of the Innovation Summit. You know, if you think about what it is that we do, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and that is, you know, part of all of our responsibility is to educate and create that next generation of innovators and makers. And so in many ways, this is a pipeline problem that we have, or a pipeline opportunity, because if we talk about it in the context of a problem, you know, it sort of has a negative connotation to it or a negative perspective. And I think what all of us have, or should have, I hope have, is a perspective of when we solve this, we really are going to capitalize on this unique opportunity to take this talented mix of students at all ages and really get them into the position of innovating and attacking some of the world's most important problems. And so I think it's really important for all in higher education to support makers in the innovation ecosystems that exist within our academic communities or our neighborhoods and communities in general. So our goal today is really for all of us collectively in the group today to really work together, to share ideas, and collectively identify. So there's going to be real work here, actually. Okay, so I want everyone to recognize that we're actually going to be doing a lot of work, and we're going to identify and set priorities to really look at how do we want to identify and define the shared real problems that exist in innovation and making that exist around the country today. Then do a deep dive and look into some of the specific solutions that may exist. So let's first prioritize what some of those problems are, and once we have some priorities, then start diving deep into what some possible solutions might be. If you think about Kirk Carlson's talk yesterday, he talked about NABC. We're going to be focusing mostly on the N and the A, that is the need and the approach, okay? And then in the latter parts of today, we'll basically report out and look at some of the competition that may exist between those different ideas that are being presented. Overall, what we want to do is ensure that we're all giving way to new ideas, being open to new ideas, as well as sharing our different experiences on campuses and approaches to these problems. So I'm really happy to introduce Stephanie Santos. She's a Senior Policy Advisor for Making to the Office of Science Technology Policy. And Stephanie, that's the job I want, okay? I don't think there could be a cooler job to be the Senior Policy Advisor for Making. That just sounds like the greatest thing in the world. So in her role, she's leading efforts to develop initiatives, activities, and programs to support the maker movement. Now, one thing I thought about that when I met Stephanie and when I read her bio is none of those things are exactly about thinking, it's about doing. And again, that's sort of what we heard a lot of the talks about is, you know, there are people and ideas where if you sit on the sidelines and you think they always stay just ideas or thoughts. And really, a lot of her work is about actually taking on real work and having initiatives, activities, and programs to support the maker movement. Now, all of you are aware of some of what I think are some really preeminent examples of her success. The inaugural White House Maker Fair, for example, I think that was 2 years ago, and the National Day of Making last year. How much more visible can events be than having President Obama, the President of the United States, and senior leaders have the opportunity to really share the enthusiasm around this concept. So our goal today is to think about making, building, tinkering, fixing, and generally coming up with ways to make the world better. So without further ado, Stephanie Santos.
Hello, everybody. I have to tippy-toe or adjust the mic, one of the two. Thank you so much, Jean Dirk, for a great introduction, and I think what is going to be a really fantastic workshop today. I wanted to just say a brief thank you. I've been here at the Innovation Summit since yesterday, and it's just been incredible to see so many amazing thought leaders across the board talk about the future of innovation, from everything related to healthcare to education education, and really seeing the role that making has been having in those conversations, and that it has taken such a prominent position in so many discussions. And so I am looking forward to speaking with all of you here today throughout the afternoon. As Dean Durkin mentioned, the president is really committed to thinking about the ways to support makers in communities around the country, realizing that the maker movement is something that is very locally focused. So as much as the White House can shine a light on what's happening in communities around the country, so much of the great work that's being done is being done locally. And so I'm really looking forward to figuring out how we can work together to scale up these efforts, especially in these last 15 months, the administration. Without further ado, I wanted to also introduce somebody who very much wanted to be here today, but couldn't be here physically. So he is joining us via Skype. He's the head of the Tech and Innovation Division at the Office of Science and Technology Policy. So he's my boss, and he's the head of our team. And as many really wonderful things as Dean Dirk said about me, all of that would not have been possible without Tom. So long before there was ever an advisor for making at the White House, Tom has been talking about why the maker movement has been so important since the very beginning of the administration. And then prior to that has, with regards to the connection to universities and innovation, has done a lot of work at Berkeley in terms of creating more opportunities for students to really take their ideas and put them into practice. So he started the Big Ideas initiative there. I think everybody can see you, Tom. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Tom Khalil, the Deputy Director for Tech and Innovation.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you so much. Thank you, Steph, and thanks so much for all the great work that you've been doing to promote making, not only within the federal government, but building a growing coalition of companies, mayors, universities, schools, libraries, museums, nonprofit organizations that represent that realize that they really have a stake in the maker movement and have both opportunity to contribute to and benefit from their involvement in the maker movement. I want to thank Case Western for hosting this meeting and for your own leadership on really exciting initiatives like ThinkBox, and very much wish I could be there, but I want you to know that we are now working on the budget. So actually the higher education community should want me strapped to my desk and not going anywhere, and just pushing for funding for university research. I just wanted to say a couple words about some of the exciting things that we're beginning to see happen in colleges and universities across the country. And then also talk about what are some potential next steps and how we might continue to work together to make the most of these opportunities. First is obviously a growing number of schools are investing in maker spaces, whether those are spaces like ThinkBox that universities are building on their own and are making available not only to faculty, staff, and students, but to the broader community, or in some cases, like at Arizona State University, serving as an anchor tenant for something like a tech shop. So obviously that's one very important thing that's going on. The second is the opportunities to look at the intersection between making and the curriculum. And obviously the payoffs to this really are going to be magnified is not only is there a space on campus that allows faculty, students, and staff to design and make just about anything, but there are more design classes and there are more project-oriented classes that provide some structure for this and allow students to get some academic credit for some of the ideas that they have. And one really positive trend that I'm seeing is that that a lot of campuses are now beginning to introduce this much earlier into the curriculum. So as opposed to saying, oh, you get to do this when you're a senior, but first some more thermodynamics before you get to do that. Really thinking about having these design-oriented courses be things that they can start doing right away. And I think that is going to help with some of the retention issues that we have. For example, of the students that intend to get a STEM degree, only 35% actually complete those degrees. And I think if they begin to see the relevance for why they have to, take all these introductory courses, I think that would increase the extent to which students persist in areas like STEM. Third is that there are some campuses that are beginning to build this into the admissions process. So letting applicants know that they can submit not only their GPA and their SAT score, but their maker portfolio. I think that's really going to have an impact in terms of getting more students to be aware of this if they know that this could give them an edge in terms of the admissions process. And fourth, some colleges and universities are beginning to explore the connection between making and teacher education. So Sonoma State University and a number of other CSU campuses have developed a professional development certificate for making and teaching. So those are some of the examples of things that are already going on. And in terms of other things that we would be really interested in working with colleges and universities that could build on what it is that you've already accomplished. I know that a number of colleges and universities have K through 12 outreach programs because you're interested in developing a pipeline, in increasing the inclusion of women and underrepresented minorities, particularly in the STEM fields, in helping to address the huge inequities that exist in higher education, where upper middle class students are far more likely to go to college and successfully complete than students from low income families. And so one question is whether there's an opportunity to build making in to those outreach activities. So obviously what we would like to see happen is in as many schools around the country as possible to have a space, a set of tools and materials that will allow teachers and students to get started, and one or more adults that can serve as mentors and help the students work on progressively more challenging projects. The second is the role that students might be able to play in helping to collect information on the local and regional maker ecosystem. So one of the things that we would like more regions to do is to say, what are our current assets? Where would we like to be over the next couple of years? And what are the public and private actions that would have the biggest impact on having a really strong and vibrant maker ecosystem? And then the third issue is what I would call the making for what question, which is what are the opportunities for collaboration between makers on the one hand, and then people who really understand some of the problems and challenges in a particular domain, and what are the types of collaborations that will really allow people to begin to design, develop, and prototype solutions. And one thing that I would love to send around to the participants in this meeting is a video of a makeathon that was organized by an Israeli nonprofit in San Francisco that brought together makers and people with disabilities, particularly the cerebral palsy community. And the people with disabilities were able to articulate some of the challenges that they have in living independently and solving some really basic problems. And in a very short period of time, you just saw, the 19 prototypes of potential solutions to these problems, some of which the participants began using the next week. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity. The last thing I want to leave you with is how do we reach out to more faculty, students, and staff on campuses to get them to recognize that no matter what discipline they are in, they have an important role to play in advancing the maker movement. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of what I mean by that, but I'm sure the smart people that are in the room can come up with dozens more. So we've already talked about teacher education. So imagine that you are a middle school or high school STEM teacher. How would you use these maker tools in order to help students excel in STEM subjects? And what are the opportunities to have greater alignment between maker activities and college and career standards like the next generation science standards, for example? In engineering, what are the what tools which, if they were available, could increase the variety and value of what it is that a small team can design and prototype? So one of the things that we've seen is that in the same way that we've gone from the mainframe to the mini computer to the PC to the supercomputer that fits in your pocket, researchers and entrepreneurs are coming up with tools for desktop manufacturing, like a $2,000 desktop CNC mill machine. What future advances in both hardware and software would further increase the variety and value of what it is that an individual or a small team can design and prototype and make in low volume? So clearly a big role for mechanical engineers. People in the library schools, a number of libraries all over the country are beginning to play an important role in terms of creating maker spaces. So there may be roles for them. So, that's my sort of assertion, is that, regardless of what it is that the different disciplines are, that there are roles for faculty, students, and staff in lots of different areas to both benefit from and contribute to the maker movement. And so one of the things I'd like to see us work on together is what are some examples of how faculty and students and staff from different disciplines are getting involved in the maker movement. So if you have ideas with respect to how universities might be able to integrate making into their K-12 outreach activity, that students might be a resource for mapping local and regional maker ecosystems, and that we would begin to explore more ways for researchers in different disciplines to get involved in the maker movement in terms of understanding it and promoting it and advancing it. Those are definitely things that we'd love to work with you on in the future. So I don't know if we have time for a question or two or some high quality free advice from the audience, but if there is time for a question or two, I'd be delighted to answer one.
We probably have time for one question. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So we have one question. We have the person with the hand up first. Email address. Okay. How about a second question? And actually, Stephanie's here, so you can get some definitely meet up with Stephanie afterwards and get her email address. Absolutely. Are there any other questions that we have for Tom before he leaves? Yes.
Can you contextualize the U.S. interest in making globally?
Did you hear that, Tom?
No, I did not.
Can you contextually?
Contextualize what's happening in North America, government ideas about it, with what's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Global, it's not national.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I think, for example, you look at the Fab Lab network, you'll see very strong global participation and some really interesting things happening in Barcelona, for example. And also, just what is beginning to happen in Shenzhen is really exciting as well. So there are cool things happening all over the place. And I think one really interesting idea is that, whether this gives us a totally different way of thinking about global development and development assistance, as opposed to, going over there and thinking that we can solve all their problems, figuring out how we can help them develop the capacity to solve their own problems. And I think that's one of the things that the USAID is beginning to experiment with.
Thank you. Tom, thank you so much. This is Lisa Camp here at CASE. We miss seeing you this week, but I'm sure we'll see each other in the future, and you take care of yourself and you work on that budget for us, okay?
All right. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.